Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a This Year in Perfume, and we're going to highlight the end of the 80s. A very sad video for me because this is the final ranked This Year in Perfume, and just like the 80s itself being sort of a tumultuous decade, lots of changes. Many of the videos we've done, I think it's been very easy to say, oh, it's going to be easy to see, Boss Number 1 at the top of this list, or Bel Ami at the top of that list. Or yet, the video we did recently, Fahrenheit was at the top, right? And so it's easy on a lot of these to say, I kind of know how this is going to end if I know Ramsey's taste. This one is a complete mashup. I doubt very few people who know me would probably guess how this video ended up. The top spots are occupied by some of my favorites, and yet many of the top spots I think are sort of underrated because this really touches to my personal taste. There's some serious animalic fragrances, and there's some serious leather fragrances that took the top spot. Once I really started putting things together, I have to stay true to myself, and these are just my personal opinions, so that's a fair turning point to say these ranked videos are just my personal opinion. I'm not saying number 1 is better than number 20, but this is going to be, by the way, a top 22. And so we've got a pretty long list of fragrances from 1989 in my collection. Also, I'm going to say we're going off of Parfumo. So take that with a grain of salt. If Fragrantica says 1990 or 88 or 87 or whatever it is, I'm using Parfumo. I'm just trying to keep it even-keeled across all the videos. So this is what Parfumo says, so that's what I'm going off of. So let's talk a little bit about the history of 1989, some important events that took place, and then we'll get into Scent of the Day, and we'll hop right into this since this is going to be a potentially long video. So first of all, some historical events that happened in 1989. The Tiananmen Square protests in China are probably right there at the top of the list as far as important events go. There was also the Hillsborough disaster in the United Kingdom. I'm sure Rich Mitch knows of that. The Galileo spacecraft was launched by NASA. After 30 years of Cold War between East and West, following the Malta Conference, the Berlin Wall comes down. That is an iconic symbol right there. And speaking of tumultuous periods of change, there was the Alaska's Prince William Sound. The Exxon Valdez spills 240,000 barrels of oil. That's a lot of oil. Nintendo released its very first Game Boy. How's that? What else? There was the savings and loan crisis if you were in the United States. Apparently a quarter of all savings and loan associations required some sort of bailout. The bailouts already began all the way in 1989. Crazy. So anyways, that's sort of just a historical backdrop in 89. Obviously, I was still very, very young in the 80s. And so a lot of this stuff I have to read. I didn't get to really experience it as an adult, like some of you who are old enough to remember some of these events. But I just like to cover it to sort of set the scene, if you will, because many a times these fragrances are not created in a bubble. They are created with the environment of the times in mind at the time. And there's probably a book to be written in that, history of the world and fragrances, and how you could sort of infer what's going on in the world with the fragrances that the public demands. What does that say about our modern sterilized times? Maybe that's a term paper for someone much more knowledgeable than me. So let's do Scent of the Day, and then we will jump into this. So Scent of the Day is actually a fragrance that featured in our 1988 video. And I just did a video on this if you want to see my thoughts. I did just a quick overview because this deserves its own video, because there's no content like this on YouTube. While everyone else is sort of rushing to put out their newest fragrance lists, and they're as soon as something comes out, they rush to put out their review so that they can get the clicks. I want to take the opposite path and talk about some of this older stuff that real fragrance aficionados should appreciate. And this is one to put on the radar. This is Jean-Charles de Castelbajac. I can't say his name without doing that. I'm sorry. Try to say Castelbajac without saying de Castelbajac. But he, cool name aside, he's got some banger fragrances. And this is one. This is JCC number 2. And JCC number 2 is a women's targeted fragrance. And I did a review on this. It's amazing. It's a little Diaghilev, a little Mitsuko, lots of amazing Chypres wrapped up in here. very sexualized chypres. I love those type of fragrances. Slightly animalic as well. There's some castoreum and all this amazing stuff. So if you're a chypre fan, if you're a fan of complex perfumery, if you're a fan of old school chypres from the past, oh, it's so good. I've really enjoyed wearing it. I've left myself with still maybe another spritz or two for a cold night. So yes, this deserves its own video and shout out. JCC number 2 by Jean-Charles de Castelbajac. So, okay, next on the list we have, well, not next on the list, but first on the list, well, last on the list, because we're going in reverse order. So last on the list, we've got number 22, and it's actually a fragrance that I bet you, if you know my taste, you think this would be higher. Actually, I can't stand this fragrance. Well, it's not that I can't stand it, it's just that maybe I can't stand it. I don't know. Maybe I need to spend more time with it. Maybe I need an older vintage bottle. Maybe this one is one of the times that Ted Lapidus has not been able to translate what they did in the past to the future. And to be fair, this was originally a Balenciaga fragrance. Ted Lapidus ended up taking it over, but it was originally a Balenciaga fragrance, and it's called Rumba. And there are people that absolutely love this stuff. I do not like this. I mean, let me take that back. That's not true. I can see the potential in this. I don't like the way that this bottle is executed. Maybe it needs some air in it. Maybe I need a vintage to try to appreciate it a little bit more. Usually the vintages are even richer and deeper, and this is very animalic, very indolic, very floral, very challenging in a way. It was actually, I think the original, I forget who perfumed the original, but it was a big shot, you know, and if you look at the top, it has that, you know, Balenciaga, like if you've seen those old Balenciaga bottles with the bees on the gold, that'll give you an idea of sort of the bottle itself, but now it's in Ted Lapidus's name. So I think they did this in 2009. I think before that, it was originally an 89 release under Balenciaga, like I say. So I'm including it in the list. Floral, spicy, lots of these decadent fruit notes with florals. And this is also a chypre, but it just goes to show how taste can really change. Because on one side, I'm saying I love an animalic chypre. And on another side, I'm saying I really don't like the execution of this one. Every nose is different. And maybe this would grow on me with time. Maybe maybe with some air in the bottle, it'll open up a little bit more, and the notes will feel a little less synthetic, but I would love to hunt down a Balenciaga version of this and do a comparison video for you guys, because that's the kind of content that I like doing. So, Rumba comes in at number 22. Number 21 is a Boucheron fragrance, and it's another one where it originally came out in 1989. They reformulated this, I believe, in 2011. So I think I've got a reformulated bottle. Well, I know I have a reformulated bottle. This is an Inter Parfums bottle, and this is Boucheron pour Homme. So I would love a vintage bottle of this as well to see what the OG was all about, because this is one of those fragrances where I can see the scaffolding underneath and what I think it should be, but this just doesn't deliver in this form. This is the Eau de Parfum. They originally released an Eau de Toilette and an Eau de Parfum, but it was supposed to be like this spicy, citrusy fragrance. Raymond Chailan created this, and he made some amazing fragrances of this category. He did YSL Pour Homme. He did Balenciaga's Ho Hang, the original Ho Hang. Both of those, YSL Pour Homme and Ho Hang, were from 71. So he knows something about this category of fragrance. And then he did this in 89. That's why I'm so interested to see if my idea of what I really think about this fragrance will change if I can find a vintage. In its current version, I honestly don't think it's very worth it. I mean, it's not a bad fragrance. It just is sort of a citrus heavy, uninspired to me. You know, I think it needs some of that oak moss and heft underneath that this is missing. But is it a bad fragrance? No, but it's not the best from the house either. I'd prefer Jaipur at this point, from what I know of this scent from this modern version. But a vintage of those last two on the list, 22 and 21, are on my radar for the future at some point. Okay, next on the list is number 20, and it's our very first Etro. There's actually 3 Etros on this list, and Etro is a brand that I think is very underrated, and you'll see by just how high one of their fragrances rose in the list. But I think Etro is a fantastic fragrance house that gets completely overlooked by many, and it's a shame because they release some absolute amazing fragrances, and this is a really good one, but the powderiness of this holds this back a little bit for me, and I mean uber powdery. This is Etro Ambra. So this is originally a women's release, and I try to buy my Etros in the vintage eau de cologne if I can. It's an extremely powdery, I mean, it almost feels like someone's taking powdered sugar and dumping it on an amber fragrance. Extremely powdery. If you like powders, man, this could be your holy grail oriental powdery fragrance. It's coriander, labdanum, bergamot, amber, apopanax, geranium, styrax, rose, vanilla, patchouli, and musk. It's still a very good amber. So Etro, I've never smelled an Etro that I thought was bad. That's the first thing I should tell you. The second thing is, now they do these in EDTs. So the modern's the EDT. I've never smelled the modern. I've only smelled the vintage EDC. So I don't know how good the modern EDT is, but I can tell you that this is a really good fragrance, and I think that this would smell absolutely amazing on a woman. It's just so, the powder almost makes it gourmand in a way. Like, it almost adds this gourmand aspect to it because of this powdered sugar. I mean, I'm thinking like, you know those white donuts that you buy from the gas station that are like the worst thing you can eat in the world, but they taste so damn good. That's the white powder that comes to mind when I smell this, with an amber note that's done very well, very competent amber. You know, if you like your Shalimars or those kind of things, I would recommend trying this if that's your bag. But just beware. Don't say I didn't warn you. It is powdery. So that is Etro Ambra. All right, so that's number 19. Sorry, number 20. That was, so we had Lapidus's Rumba at 22, Boucheron Pour Homme at 21, and then Etro Ambra at 20. So, number 19. Number 19 is a little talked about fragrance that is actually better than the ranking, I think. This easily could be higher. It's just with all of these bangers coming up, how do you rank something like 1989? So this had to be here, but honestly, I think this has the chance to go higher the more I wear it and the more I get to know it. But this is Bozzini. Bozzini Men is what it's called. Bozzini Men. And how about this packaging? This is almost like pre-Roja days, Roja packaging. You know that magnetic boxes Roja has that he does PDLN1 and his Houtlux collection in? Look at this. It's like a 1980s version of a Roja box. I like it. And the fragrance is really good. Actually, really, really good. That's why I say this has a chance to rise some spots. I'm just not ready to put it any higher yet. But it's basically 4 notes according to Fragrantica. There's no note listing on Parfumo or base notes, so I had to go off of Fragrantica. It's green tea, blackcurrant, amber, and musk. And so the main notes that you basically will pick up is musk and this fruitiness. Okay, it's kind of what you get, this tea-like fruitiness. Which adds some freshness, and the musk has this slight animalic aspect to it. So this is still in the 80s, okay? And how about that bottle? Cool bottle. It's almost like a drugstore fragrance, but done with good design, good eye for design, if you will. And this has this 80s animalic feel to it. So it really feels like you're smelling some of the musky side of the 80s coming through. The musky animalics. Really good stuff. Slightly spicy, but very, very musky, and well done. I think this is a well done fragrance that deserves more love in the vintage community. But if you can find this for cheap and you're someone like me that kind of likes to take a flyer on stuff, just see what it's like, Bozzini for men is worth taking a punt on. Okay. Next on the list, so that was number 19. Number 18 is one that I have a hard time placing this because I really, really like this fragrance, but it's very sweet, okay? So I'm at odds with myself because the part of me that hates sweet fragrances is like, what are you doing liking this? And the other side is like, but this is a really good fragrance. The vintage bottle, the vintage, do not get the new one. Don't even think about getting the new one. The new one is bubblegum trash. This one is the one to get. It is Joop Homme. So you want to get the Lancaster version with the little tree on the front, if you will. Also, if you want to look at the distributor, you can. It's the Lancaster one. That's the one I'd recommend getting, okay? The new one is uber synthetic. If you think this is synthetic, the new one is even more synthetic. This has a little more natural feel to it underneath the synthetics. Yes, it's a synthetic composition in and of itself. Yes, this is still sweet, but it doesn't feel as sickly sweet. It doesn't feel like cough syrup sweet, okay? And if you wear it and you give it a chance, especially in the right weather, if you wear this in the cold and you really let some of those, you know, as I throw the cap, you let some of those chewy, powdery, you know, heliotrope-like notes start to come through with that cinnamon. And the cinnamon comes in with the vanilla, and it just, you know, I've worn an entire bottle of Original Santal by Creed. And this is like the grandfather of Creed's Original Santal, and Mont Blanc Individual is like the father of Creed's Original Santal. So I wore Creed Original Santal first. Then I discovered Joop Homme. And so going to Joop Homme, I think, was a little easier for me if I didn't understand that DNA. Parfumo shows Michel Almerac. Pierre Bourdon says he created Joop Homme, and he also did a lot of Creed, so it makes sense that he did the Original Santal. But, you know, anyways, just keep that in mind. It may be a little tougher for you to accept this as a good fragrance if you come to this without the experience of Original Santal that I had, okay? Because the heliotrope makes it very chewy, which I love. And this is an example of a well-done tonka bean scent, okay? So to be honest with you, I would rather wear this than Fève Delicious all day. Even though it's sweet, even though both are sweet, I think this is how you do a proper tonka bean scent to me. This is just my opinion. But yes, the new Coty version, I wouldn't even mess with. If you can find a vintage Lancaster version at a good price, it's worth going for. All right, so Joop Homme comes in at number 18. Number 17 is a fragrance I bought a partial from my good friend Anuj, and the juice is very dark. And, you know, the top on this one feels a little bit, it takes a couple minutes to maybe really settle down when you first spray this. But after it settles, it's a great fragrance. But I'm very curious what a fresh bottle that hasn't had so much air in it for so long would be like, because look how dark this one is. This is Basile Uomo Forte, which some people like that darkness, and it can be an okay thing. Sometimes it just naturally changes, but over the years, if it sits for a while, sometimes, you know, those top notes can really turn with a lot of air in the bottle. So I'd love to see what a brand new bottle of this is like, just to compare to make sure that this is really what I should be smelling. One of the downsides of vintage. I always talk about the pros, but there are downsides too. So Basile Uomo Forte is basically an amber fougere. Okay, so I want you to think about things like Pierre Cardin's Pour Monsieur from 1972. Take that and just bring it forward into the 80s. And that's basically what you get here. You have this semi-oriental style with this, you know, fougere-like top, if you will. So there's mandarin orange, there's lemon, bergamot, aldehydes, green notes, and artemisia, with carnation, cinnamon, rose, coriander, jasmine, pepper fir, sandalwood, and cedar, with vanilla, amber, patchouli, olibanum, cistus, and vetiver. So it's very, you know, oriental feel with a fougere-like vibe, and it's right in that amber fougere category that I say that I love. But the problem is, it really can't compete with the big hitters, you know? It just can't compete with stuff like Guerlain's Heritage and my True Loves. And that's why this is sort of where it's at. I really think this could be higher, and I'm curious what a fresh bottle would be like. Maybe one that's unsprayed. But this is still good, even for what it is. Even though I have to wait maybe 5 or 10 minutes for it to calm down, because the opening is a little off, it's still a good fragrance. Basile Uomo Forte. at number 17. Number 16 is probably one of the best fresh fragrances ever created. If you want to smell like soap, this is the way that I would go about doing it. Not the modern, like yesterday in my live stream of a brand that I really didn't care for, Juicebox, they had a fragrance called Micro Love. And that was like a modern way of trying to smell fresh. And it was very ozonic and futuristic and weird. I didn't like it. You want to smell fresh, you want to smell like soap, go with something like this. Or Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. Those are two good soapy fragrances, but this is one of the best, Homme. And if you can find the older bottles, like this is a Riviera Concepts one, do it. But even the new ones aren't terrible, but I'll do a comparison video one day. I've been saying that forever. I need to do it. This is cleanliness in the 80s style, if you will. There's a lot going on here. You have juniper berries, sage, bergamot, pepper, caraway, lemon, artemisia, basil, aldehydes, geranium, carnation, jasmine, caraway, rose, stone pine needles, oak moss, fir, musk, patchouli, vetiver, sandalwood, cedar, and leather. And it really all comes together to give sort of a spicy, woody, soapy freshness is what you get. And this is obviously, you can see in 1989, it was the year of coloring the juice. So you had the pink juice of Joop Homme, you had the purple juice of Homme, and so yeah, they were really trying to go with some extra marketing to catch the people's attention. But this was actually a really big hit, and I can see why. It's a really good fragrance. So that is Homme by the house of Alfred at number 16. Number 15 is an Elizabeth Taylor fragrance, believe it or not. And it's a damn good one. Probably one of the best celebrity fragrances. Maybe not Pavarotti level, but damn good. And this is Elizabeth Taylor's Passion for Men. And Passion for Men is such a great... I'm going to spray this because it's been a while since I've sprayed Passion for Men. But I think one of the most relaxing lavender vanilla fragrances for this kind of money that you can find. I mean, it does have this oriental vibe because of the vanilla and the musks and all that stuff, but there's a freshness to it too. Very relaxing. Passion. Let me label this blotter. Let's spray this. It's been a while since I've sprayed it. And of course I sprayed my finger, as always. So Passion for Men. Oh, that is good. That is really good. I love sort of the one note that is really prominent here that needs to be highlighted is the patchouli, because the patchouli in Passion for Men gives it this really earthy vintage vibe, which I love. I love the way the patchouli is done here. Hairy-chested patchouli, I guess you could say, but it's cut with this slightly, semi-sweet vanilla that is very well done. And when you mix it with the spiciness of nutmeg, it stays masculine, and yet it adds this sensual softness to it. Very relaxing, very, very relaxing is I think a good word for it. And Elizabeth Taylor herself designed the bottle. This almost like, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of those spotlights that, announce like a new opening of a shop or something, and they've got the spotlights that go across the sky, That's what this bottle reminds me of, like the spotlights kind of shining on the in the sky, announcing this new building is open or something. Cool little design. I like it. I like the Art Deco style. Okay, next on the list is going to be a fragrance from the house of Tiffany. And this is a fragrance that got mentioned yesterday, and as is the one that follows this, in our Demachi video that we did, our Francois Demachi video. And this is called Tiffany for Men. So I said that, Jacques Polge gets credit for this, although Demachi was there with Polge, so I wouldn't be surprised if he had maybe something to do with this, but they don't credit him, so I didn't bring it up in the Demachi video. But this is, imagine like a thicker, heavier, powdery version of Chanel's Pour Monsieur. That's basically what this is. They've added a ton of orris, which is beautiful here. Very well done. It adds this powderiness to it. Almost, you know, if you know the way that the powderiness in Ralph Lauren's Chaps interacts with the fragrance, that sort of powderiness, that is how the powderiness feels in Tiffany for Men, on two different completely different chassis, but they both have a similar powderiness, if that makes sense. And it's frankincense in the base, amber, vanilla, oak moss, tonka bean. There's a little bit of anise. There's lavender, so you get the herbs, the old school carnation, the nutmeg. It's really good, especially if you can find these old bottles before Coty came in and started taking over the distribution. These are good. Tiffany for Men coming in at number 14. Number 13 is another fragrance that got mentioned in the Demachi video yesterday, but he did not get credit because Jacques Polge got the credit for this one. And this is Chanel's Pour Monsieur EDT Cologne Concentree. The Concentree version specifically is the one that came out in 1989. And this is my favorite version of Chanel's Pour Monsieur. Actually, this won't be too overwhelming to spray. So let's spray. This is another one I haven't sprayed in a while. Let's see. Chanel Pour Monsieur Concentree. All right, let's spray you, Mr. Concentree. Yes, I much prefer this to the original. Much prefer this. Basically what they've done is, at least what I think they've done, I don't know what they've done, but I think what they did with the Cologne Concentree and what his son, Olivier Polge, took with and ran, he ran with it and created the Eau de Parfum in 2016 of Chanel's Pour Monsieur. But basically, they've added this heaviness of a Papanax and vetiver in the base. And so it goes maybe a little bit away from the old school Chypre style construction of the EDT, which I normally like, but there is, Rich Mitch says that fragrance turns to bleach on his skin, and I know what he's talking about. It also doesn't last very long on me, 30 minutes tops, an hour it's gone. The EDT, this lasts a respectable amount of time, 5-6 hours you could say, and the addition of the Papanax in the vanilla, which I think Olivier Polge amped up the vanilla even more in the 2016 Eau de Parfum. The one thing that this one has that the Eau de Parfum doesn't have is a lot more oak moss. So the oak moss in the base here adds this old school vintage vibe that you'll pick up. You won't pick it up in the EDP because it's very much toned down. But the Cologne Concentree version has this old school oak moss, which is really missing from the modern EDP. I like the modern EDP. It's just, I like the fact that even though this has that Papanax and vanilla, and the lavender here is actually what comes across as slightly powdery. Powdery has been the theme of this video, I've noticed. I didn't even notice that till I was going through them all, but there is a little bit of powderiness from the lavender, and I think it's a similar powderiness you get in Tiffany for Men, except for Tiffany for Men, they amp it up even more with orris root, and I love the orris root touch in Tiffany for Men, but Chanel has that Chanel poshness, you know, that Chanel sparkle that you get here. That's why I ranked it one step ahead of the Tiffany for Men. Although, ask me tomorrow, Tiffany for Men may be ahead of the Chanel. These are 1 and 2 for me. They're right there, like neck and neck, if you will, right next to each other in ranking. So it's tough to rank. But yes, number 13 ended up being Chanel Pour Monsieur Eau de Toilette Concentré from 1989. Okay, the second Etro on our list, and this is a new, not a new. I'm not going to say it's a new brand new bottle in my collection because I've had it now, I think, for a month or two, and I've had a chance to spray it and wear it to bed a couple times. But it is a Vetiver Etro, and it actually is Etros Vetiver Eau de Cologne. And when I first got this, I thought this was turned. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Because when you spray, or when you smell the atomizer before you spray, you almost get this slightly smoky sage. There's a note of sagebrush in here, and a clary sage, and it comes across smelling from the atomizer as almost having that, you know, if you've ever smelled a fragrance that turns, it has that very specific smell. But whenever you spray this, what's crazy is it comes out as a deep, dark vetiver, and that smell goes away instantly. Almost instantly it goes away. And what you're left with is this very deep, dark, earthy vetiver. I'll tell you this. If you like Encre Noire, okay? Now, this is not like Encre Noire, because Encre Noire has a lot of modern materials that this doesn't have. And I know Nathalie Lorson loves her modern musks, and she loves cashmere and all this other stuff, and pepper and all that stuff that's in Encre Noire that this doesn't have. God, this is good. This is a fantastic vetiver. If you're a vetiver lover, and again, only because I've had it in the collection for a month, only is this not higher. This could easily have jumped more spots if I knew the fragrance better. It's so deep and inky on its own. You know, Encre Noire it literally means black ink, and it's in that ink-like bottle. But this is like Encre Noire's grandfather. This is what inspired Encre Noire to me. This type of vetiver, this very earthy, woody, but there's this iris note in here. There's tobacco flower in the base, and there's amber. So it's complex, it's deep, it's rich. It's probably challenging to people that don't like vetiver, because maybe some people would say it does that swampy thing. For me, this stays smoky, and I like dirty, dark vetivers. That's one of my favorite types of vetiver, actually. And this does that. This is so good. What a discovery. I mean, the House of Etro on its own is... Jacques Fleury created this, by the way, in 1989. What a creation. I've never smelled the EDT, but it's funny because on a lot of these Etro fragrances, if you switch to the EDT and look at them, they now say that they are also discontinued. So I don't know what's going on with the House of Etro. I also don't know if Parfumo is correct or if that's a mistake, because I thought the EDTs were what were being offered now. So, but yeah, every single one of these Etros, I flip to the EDT, it's like discontinued also. So I don't know what's going on. But I can tell you this. This is, without a doubt, the best vetiver discovery of the year for me so far. I don't even want to smell anything else. I just want to keep smelling that. Okay, next on the list we have number 11. And it's probably one of my favorite masculine rose fragrances, if there is such a thing as a masculine rose. It's Azzaro's Acteur. And Acteur is a 1989 release by Maurice Morin. It is calamus, cardamom, nutmeg, and bergamot in the top, with rose, caraway, cedarwood, and jasmine. Lots of rose in this release. Oak moss, leather, amber, and musk. And that leathery, oak mossy, ambery dry down mixed with the rose, it really is one of the best. I think it's one of the best rose fragrances out there because it keeps that vintage 80s style. You know, it follows in the line. You know, if I could pick one masculine rose from each century, or each decade, sorry, I would pick, you know, Aramis 900 for the 70s, and I would pick Acteur for the 80s. This is like the rose fragrance that you could just say, this is a rose-dominated, spicy floral scent for men. And if you go back and look at what I was saying about some of the some of the floral fragrances for men that were really starting to take off in the late 80s. Things like Paco Rabanne Tenere or Quitos. Many of them, there's like a floral bouquet. This just focuses on that rose, and it does it beautifully. Shame it's discontinued. These little 25 ml bottles, you can find floating around on eBay for pennies on the dollar. I mean, 20 bucks or something, it can be yours. For this type of juice to smell and get to know, I mean, that's a no-brainer for me. Okay, next on the list is a new discovery, and I have to give a special shout out. Well, not new, but newer discovery. Thanks to my good friend Stix Schlonghammer, the greatest YouTube name in history. He will sell me some hauls every now and then, and he's always very fair on the price. So if you're interested, hit him up. He will give you a good deal. But he found me this, and I just took a flyer on it because it was relatively cheap. I love this stuff. I think it is the best from the house. And again, obviously it's a 1989 release. I don't know who the perfumer is, but this is like a leather fougere, is how to think of this. This is Biagiotti Uomo. Biagiotti Uomo is a leather fougere, a spicy, leathery fougere. And it has my secret note in here. Every time I come across this note, I love the fragrance. It's tarragon. Tarragon, I don't know what it is about it. It adds this anisic-like greenness to a fragrance without having anise, pure anise, you know. I love tarragon. It's also great on fish. So there's coriander, bergamot, lavender, and rosemary with fern, or a fern accord, which is basically what the fougere accord is going for, to smell like a fern. Fern-like is literally what fougere means. Cedar, geranium, and patchouli with leather, oak moss, musk, and amber in the base. And I can't believe this was 30 bucks or whatever it was. It's so unbelievable. It's so good. I mean, it's hard to hype something like this because I may talk great about it and then someone else smells it and they're like, ugh, this just smells like a cheap 80s fougere. But I love these 80s fougeres is the thing. And the leather there is out of this world. It almost beat the next one. Honestly, I had it higher, then I took it back because I was like, man, if I put this any lower, I'm going to get lynched. But honestly, just talking out loud, I might like that more than the next one I'm going to show. But for purposes of this video, we're going to leave it the way my gut told me to put it. But man, that Biagiotti Uomo is it's a climber. Okay, next on the list is number 9. So I was number 10. Number 9 is the fougere that some people say is like the seminal fougere. It's the one everyone looks to. It's the classic. It's you know, if you said make a top 3 fougere list, it's in the list. And it is Tsar by Van Cleef and Arpels. So this does not have that leathery pronounced accord. There is some leather, I'm not going to lie. But it's much more green and spicy. And it focuses much more on the rosemary and lavender and pine. Pine is a big note here. There are different versions of this. This is a tester from, you can see right there. It is distributed by Adapare. And you can see the short ingredient list right there. Alcohol, denat, parfum, fragrance, aqua, water. That's it. This was later on, the bottle changed to like a see-through green-like bottle. And it was marketed by Interparfums eventually, and then they ended up taking it away. So this has gone through multiple iterations, but they all smell pretty similar. I wouldn't worry about different versions. I mean, if you can find a bottle of this, go for it. And so Tsar is kind of like the classic fougere a lot of people think of. There's a tiny touch of castoreum, I think, in the base, and there's a tiny touch of leather. But it much more focuses on the woody, green, spicy aspect, whereas that Biagiotti Uomo focuses a little bit more on the leather to me. But as far as like up and down, just this is what a fougere should be. Tsar is sort of the dictionary definition, in my opinion. At number 9. Number 8 is probably one of my favorite patchouli fragrances, and here it is at number 8. Honestly, this could be number one if you catch me on any other day. But this is how the stack fell. And this is Krizia Moods Uomo. One of the best, absolute best patchouli fragrances ever created, in my opinion. It is stunning. Absolutely stunning. You want patchouli, people? Don't go spend $300 on, you know, Xerjoff's take on patchouli, or you can just get this. I mean, if you can find this for under $100, steal. Absolute steal. Because this also, yes, it has a patchouli heavy base, but it also has this very masculine Arnold Schwarzenegger 80s style. You know, it's leathery, there's ambergris, there's obviously a bunch of patchouli. But it has this, you know, everything is like the 80s are coming to an end. Party like it's 1999. Everything is turned up in this fragrance, and I love it. I love Krizia's creations. I wish I knew who all their perfumers were. So that is Moods Uomo. Moods by Krizia Uomo. It's actually Moods Uomo by Krizia, but we'll let Parfumo slide with that one. That is at number 8. Number 7 is the best fragrance from the House of Montana. And this does focus on a leather accord. And it's brilliantly done. And it is Montana's Parfum D'Homme. So, this is an older bottle. However, I will tell you that I have some newer bottles that still smell good, but they don't smell exactly like the vintage. So there has been some reformulation issues here. It is now apparently discontinued officially, which is very sad. But this is a spicy, green, woody, leathery fragrance that reminds many people of Havana by Aramis. I actually think this might be better than Aramis Havana, although that's a great fragrance. That really focuses more on the tobacco. This focuses more on the leather. This still has the pine, the lavender, the pepper, the old school carnation. There's a lot of different things in here. The cedar. Yeah, it's spicy, woody, leathery, just the best fragrance by the House of Montana, I would say. Absolute best. So that is Montana's Parfum D'Homme at number 7. Number 6, coming down to the end. Number 6 is going to be an underdog, a sleeper, a left hook for you folks not expecting this. I love this stuff, though. Actually, I love it so much I bought a backup. Never want to be without it. Want to have enough for a lifetime. It is Daniel Hector's Character in the vintage bottle. So the new bottle has this weird, like, flag thing going right here above. Well, on the new bottles, it actually says Daniel Hector on the bottom instead of right here. It says it on the bottom, and there's this weird flag thing going above the Daniel Hector name on the new ones. But it's basically a fragrance from 1989 that feels like it should be released in 1981, is the way I would describe it. It opens up with a big hit of old school Artemisia, Basile, Castoreum. Okay, so it opens up animalic and slightly even vintage for its time, if that makes sense. Even though it's vintage today, because 1980 is way back then, when it came out in 89, it felt like a vintage fragrance. Like, it felt like it was probably a decade late to the game. You know, if you like things like Antaeus or stuff like that, I would say check this out. I'm not saying it is Antaeus. I'm just saying it's in the category of those sort of spicy, animalic fragrances from the 80s. Fantastic stuff. Absolutely fantastic. Underrated to a T, to a fault, just because this brand is sort of a weird, you know, they were like a latecomer into the fragrance game, and then they issued something, and then they just stopped. I don't know what's going on with the house, but apparently they're still doing new things. No one talks about any of the new stuff they do. But yeah, the original Character, I would say, without smelling any of the new stuff, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's the best thing from the house. Okay, next on the list is going to be a Guerlain, and maybe many of you thought this would be number 1, but it's number 5. It is the great, venerable Samsara. So this is the Eau de Parfum, and my bottle is literally like a 2002 or 2003 bottle or something. 2001, I can't remember. Right when they stopped using the real Mysore sandalwood, or right around the time when they say they stopped using it. So I don't know. I mean, this is still a good fragrance. I would love to smell an OG, a true OG bottle, or even the Pure Parfum. I'd love to smell the Pure Parfum. It's a fantastic fragrance. I mean, let me see if I can spray this. It's been a while since I've sprayed the old sandalwood horse, the old sandalwood workhorse in Samsara. Let's see. All right, Samsara. Wow, it's been a while since I've sprayed her. Oh, it's so Guerlain though. It is just so chic, so Guerlain. No one did a Guerlain fragrance like the Guerlains. Man, I miss the days when the old man was at the helm and all was right in the world. And see, the thing about this fragrance, the reason it's number 5 and not number 1, I'll tell you just right now, my personal feeling on it. The ylang ylang note in this is stunning. Those people who are like, oh, I'm looking for the perfect ylang ylang, Samsara. It's one of the best ylang ylang notes I've ever smelled. And the orris, the carnation, I mean, the whole floral accord, this oriental floral accord that they built is stunning here. But Samsara is all about the dry down, that sandalwood. It's so meditative and relaxing and smooth. But the reason it's number 5 and not number 1 is there's something about this that sometimes it will just absolutely like overwhelm me. I mean, just like, almost like give me like a migraine. I don't get migraines, but if I did, smelling Samsara would do it to me. So I can really appreciate what it is. I love the fragrance, but sometimes I'm like, man, that is just too much even for me. But it is one of the best sandalwood fragrances of all time. Number 5, Samsara. All right, 4, 3, 2, 1. Number 4. Number 4 is one of the best fragrances from the house of Jil Sander. I still think my favorite is the 81 release Man Pure, which I'm looking for a bottle. They're just hard to find at a fair price. Do I want a bottle? Yes. Do I want to pay a fortune for a bottle? No. So I'm just kind of biding my time, but this one's really good too. This is Jil Sander's Man. It's also known as Man Pure. It depends on the distributor. If your bottle is a Jil Sander Cosmetics, it'll be Man. If it's Lancaster, it'll be Man Pure. But it's basically the exact same fragrance. Or sorry, excuse me. It'll be Feeling Man, not Man Pure. Man Pure is the one from 81. This will be Feeling Man if you have the Lancaster bottle. Same fragrance. This is Jil Sander really in a nutshell. I did a review of a fragrance by them called oh crap, I forgot what it was called already. I'm getting too old. Background. It was called Background. And Background actually felt like a worse version of Feeling Man because they do have a DNA. They have a house DNA. And that fruity raspberry thing that they do is very signature-like, if you will. And but this has lots of modern elements and it has lots of vintage elements, and that's what I love about it. It's like a blend, and it feels futuristic, but it also feels vintage in the same way. The fruit note in here is stunningly well executed. I love the raspberry in here. I love the ambery, warmth. There's some tobacco, which makes it masculine, old school. There's some lavender, tarragon, again, green and old school, and anise. But there's also some powdery orris and oriental accords that soften everything up. Spicy, it's woody, it's Alain Alkenberger from Simrise created this, apparently. I can't say I'm familiar with his work, but he did a hell of a job there. So, that is Jil Sander's Man, or Feeling Man, depending on which version you have, from 89. Number 4. Number 3 is actually the third iteration in the Hugo Boss line of fragrances for men in the 80s. First we had Boss number 1, then we had Boss Sport, then we had this little bad boy. And this is Boss Spirit. And I love Boss Spirit. Boss Spirit is, Chris from Scentland calls this 80s sunshine in a bottle. And you know what? There's something to be said about that, because even though it is extremely green, like imagine taking all of the green notes you could imagine and combining them together: mugwort, tarragon, galbanum, peppermint, and even it smells like cannabis in the top, aldehydes, tarragon, if I didn't say it. This is like the tarragon fragrance, by the way. This is tarragon and tarragon with lavender, geranium, leather, sandalwood, amber, and patchouli. And it is so dry and green. And, you know, this is the stuff the fragrance industry needs today. None of this bullshit sweetness, you know. It needs a fragrance like this, just to punch you in the face. Dry, green, almost Chypre in style, but with a leathery heart that comes through. And but it also has this elegance and class. And God, Boss was on a one-way train to the top in their first 3 releases. And then they released Boss Bottled, and everything just fell apart for them. I honestly think Boss Bottled was like the gift and a curse for Boss, because it was a sales smash hit. Everyone loved Boss Bottled, that stupid apple pie smell. And then all they did was flankers. They lost all the creativity that made them so brilliant, so brilliant. I love the first 3 fragrances from Boss. And Boss Spirit will always encompass that third spot for me. After Boss number 1, Boss Sport, and then Boss Spirit, the end of the 80s. Yeah, Samsara, man. Let's see what Chanel Pour Monsieur. I really like that. That's really, really good. Passion for Men. Oh, yeah, now that patchouli's turning slightly chocolatey. Yeah, this is really relaxing. That vanillic chocolatey patchouli, really good. And then Vetiver. God, that is one of the best Vetivers no one talks about. So good. Okay, so that leaves number 2 and number 1. So, if anyone can guess number 2 and number 1, by the way, I will be shocked, because they are some obscure fragrances, at least for most. I've talked about them before, but I think they're obscure for most. But number 2 is a fragrance from the house of Rocco Barocco, and it's literally called Rocco Barocco Pour Homme, or Rocco Barocco EDT Pour Homme, however you want to call it. Number 2 is this, and the reason it's this is because this is... So there's 2. This is what one of the bottles looks like. And it's just completely nondescript black bottle, right? And Rocco Barocco Pour Homme basically takes my favorite features of the 80s, like this honeyed. There's a honeyed facet in here, which isn't listed in the note listing. And it's weird because it's there. 100% it's there. And it basically makes it into this hardcore animalic, but slightly spicy and herbaceous fragrance. So there's neroli in the top, there's artemisia and Egyptian jasmine and orange blossom. And reading those notes basically gives you no idea what the fragrance smells like. It's base of civet, Tyrolean oak moss. Tyrolean oak moss. I don't know what that is. But patchouli and sandalwood. And so... imagine a blend of something like, Joint by the same house, Joint Pour Homme by Rocco Barocco, and something like some Boss number 1, right? I think that's a fair mashup. But man, what a fragrance they created. And I had to be honest with myself and put it here. Honestly, it would have been easier to put this lower, because no one expects this to be number 2 this high, but damn it, it is. It is damn good. And you know what? While the other reviewers are hyping all the bullshit they want to hype. I'll hype shit like this. This is the stuff that I want to hype. This deserves to be hyped. So fucking good. If you're a vintage lover and you get this, I'm not going to say you're guaranteed to like it, but I'm going to say there's a very high chance you will like this if you like the stuff that I like. So, Rocco Barocco Pour Homme from 89. Number 2. Number 1. Number 1 may surprise some folks, but honestly, it's damn true. Number 1 for me is Etrosgoma. And Etrosgoma is number 1 for a simple reason, that I'm a leather lover. So this is what the original bottle looked like, by the way. This is my vintage eau de cologne bottle. They're both eau de cologne, but this is what the OG one looked like right here. The fragrance was changed to eau de toilette at some point. That is now discontinued according to Parfum. But let me tell you something. If you like your leathers, specifically if you like stuff like Caniche 10, you know, if those are the type of leathers that you like, old school style leathers, but you want it in an 80s presentation and created by what I would consider a master perfumer. Edward Fleischier is the perfumer of this. He did Poison, he did Rose Tonnerre, he did Lise Mediterranee, he did the original Davidoff, he did this. He did Montana Parfum D'Homme, the best from the House of Montana. He did Vendetta Pour Homme. He did the Havana Reserve, which I've yet to smell, for Aramis. He's done some absolute bangers as far as I'm concerned. Edward Fleischier made this. And I think he also did, if I'm not mistaken, Aramis Tobacco Reserve, which is one of my favorite modern tobacco scents. This is... I don't even want to spray this because I don't want to waste the spray because it's so precious to me. But basically, this is a oily, spicy, almost Russian leather style leather because of how heavy that birch is in the base. But there's all these other notes that make it a masterpiece to me. I don't give a shit what anyone else says. I think this is a masterpiece. And I said it from the moment I got it. Ask Rich Mitch. You don't believe me? Ask Rich Mitch. I told him about this as soon as I got it. I was like, holy shit, dude. This was like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. I was like, dude, get you a bottle of Goma right now. Drop everything you're doing. Go on eBay. Stop. Whatever you're doing. Whatever duck things you do. Stop. Go buy a bottle of Goma right now. And thank me later. It is so... Oh, God. I mean, this is like holy grail leather stuff for me. So, I mean, that's the way that I feel about it. It's Artemisia, tarragon, bergamot, caraway, lavender, lemon, clove, rose, ylang ylang, jasmine, birch, patchouli, cedarwood, vanilla, vetiver, and sandalwood. Interestingly enough, there's no leather note listed, but that birch accord creates a leather note, very similar to the way that the birch accord in this creates a leather note. If I can find it. I may not be able to find it. Sorry, I pushed it to the side. I don't know what I did with it. What did I do with it? Ah, tried to hide on me. Santa Maria Novella's Peau d'Espagne. So if you like stuff like this, if you like Peau d'Espagne, I'm not saying that this smells like Peau d'Espagne. In fact, I think it smells more like Caniche 10. It smells like a better, to me, I would take Etrosgoma over modern Caniche 10. Now, maybe vintage Caniche 10 is different. But I would take vintage Etrosgoma over modern Caniche 10, let's say. And I know that's a tall thing to say, but I really do think this is one of the best leathers in my collection no one talks about. And I've said that from the moment I smelled it. So, now you know my secret. Now you know my 1989 rankings. And I hope you made some notes. I hope you saw some fragrances that are full buys for you, potentially. Appreciate everyone watching, commenting. Let me know what your favorites are. Appreciate the support, everyone. Cheers, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.